First of all, welcome to everybody, and welcome to our guest of today, Valentina Ferlito. Thank you for joining. So I invited Valentina because there is another topic that I like to talk and share info about through my Science.manuela channel. That is basically career options within academia after the PhD, a bit to understand what we can face, which are the options actually that people that do a PhD can have within academia. And Valentina is a teaching fellow of the University of Edinburgh, in particular teaching fellow in pain management and in biomedical sciences. Recently, she has been nominated for the teaching award. So now I got confused with the word. So she's doing a very great job. It's a very good friend, and I have to say, follow her path since she was a PhD until now, and I think it's nice to see a bit her point of view and have a bit of her experience shared with us about academic teaching, I would say. So that's why, and so I have a few questions for her. So thank you again for being with us, and can I start to ask you something?
You are allowed to start questioning.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
So you are a teaching fellow at the University of Edinburgh, and so I would like to know which are your role's main duties. I say within the University of Edinburgh because I suppose that sometimes there are some differences for this role among different universities, also among different countries, but at least in this university.
Okay. So, well, at University of Edinburgh, generally, the teaching fellow role is pretty comprehensive. It's really interesting because you start as a teaching fellow with little experience in teaching, or like with your limited background, but you get to do everything and anything within courses. So you get to do your own lectures, independently if this is online or not. You get to be a course organizer. So you have the responsibility of populating the course with material, of making sure that all the course tutors and all the lecturers and all the material is there, and that everybody follow let's say the directive programs are created properly and they match the assessment. It's a huge role. So I would say that the lecturing, being a tutor, organizing live sessions with students when in need, coordinating the whole course as course organizer, and also obviously as course organizer, then you have certain responsibilities also about processing. So first of all, designing assessments, but also processing assessments. So student submissions for every course, you need to make sure that they are marked, and sometimes you can be a marker as well, or you can be just a moderator for the marks. So it's a really comprehensive role. Obviously, you get to be at the board of examiners because you are course organizer for different courses. Therefore, you start also learning about course regulations, assessment regulations, University of Edinburgh regulations. You don't really have to know everything, but it's really important if you're a course organizer that you familiarize yourself with regulations. So it's a very comprehensive role.
Okay. So you learn a lot. I mean, it's also good to know about a lot of things surrounding a course. You know, like organization-wise. I mean,
yeah. Essentially, you also get to do some of the administrative tasks, which are not purely administrative. I'm talking about like teaching administration. Okay. So there, as I mentioned before, like one of those can be assessing from students. But I think that the major thing that you get to do when you start in this role, if you didn't have any lecturing experience, definitely you're going to start. If you like, I guess the newest thing as a teaching fellow is the role, which involves a huge amount of work and also a huge amount of new work that is really, really interesting, because you really need to make sure that the course not only makes sense, but it flows well, it is well organized, it's processed correctly, that each week is their content, that students are following the material. If they have an issue, they're likely going to email you first, and then you can refer them to the different tutors or lecturers. So I guess this is the major bit.
Okay.
I guess it also depends who you work with, because maybe not every teaching fellow gets all these responsibilities at the beginning, but it is going to be part of your role.
Okay, okay. But out of curiosity, when you have basically a course to organize, I mean, they tell you about a certain topic, a certain subject. I mean, do they provide you, for example, previous lessons that have been organized by previous teaching fellows or lecturers, or basically you can basically organize a bit from scratch? You have complete freedom.
Okay, I get your questions. So I think we have to distinguish between course organizing role, which is literally coordination of a course that is ongoing or existing already, and course design. So when you have to start a course from the scratch, so let's say we want to do a course on neuroanatomy of the nervous system, so neuroanatomy, let's say. You really have to start from the scratch because this course is not in the program. So that development that you start as a course organizer and as a main course leader. And obviously you likely want to have some help from other external invited lecturers and other tutors, because filling a whole course yourself, it's a huge amount of work that generally is not done by one person. But you're going to be responsible for matching, defining the learning outcomes, the matching the content. So the content has to reflect what you expect the students to learn in this course. And obviously the assessment must be designed in a way that it reflects what you want the students to learn. So again, the expected learning outcomes. And that's when you design and develop a course from the scratch. You can be a course organizer of a course that is already existing and it's been going on for years. And as a course organizer, your main role is coordinating the course, making sure that everything works. And obviously, year by year, you want to the courses. So look at the feedback that you acquire from students in different ways, and look what worked well, what didn't work so well, and do the let's say improvement and updates for the course. And this can be from just updating an old lecture that maybe has been a few years ago and needs updating, to check that the reading list is always up to date and you're not proposing or suggesting to your students a very old reading list. Check that the tutors are doing their job, that they are present each week, and so on and so forth. Organizing the classes that can be in person or not in person. So timetable, scheduling, it's a lot of work, which is less online and a little bit more when it's face-to-face.
I see. So it looks like quite complex, articulated, you know, as a thing. Yeah. So okay, so but basically, how now I'm curious to know, but how did you arrive? So which is your path? I think you know, from the point of view of many PhD students and also postdocs, sometimes it's not clear how you can get into academic teaching. So which is, can you say briefly a bit your education and also work experience that were, you know,
Sure.
till, yeah, this last rule.
Sure. So, well, you know me, because we met when I was doing my PhD, and my PhD was in neuroinformatics and computational neuroscience. I would just short it up and say neuroscience. And well, what was how I realized that I wanted to do teaching is, first of all, I've always liked teaching.
Excuse me, one second.
I've always
yeah. Before the PhD, so you, which just to give a complete idea of your university education. Before the PhD, you have studied what? I don't remember. That's true. It's not prepared
okay,
question. It's just really I don't remember exactly.
It's okay. I'll start from the beginning.
Okay, sorry.
So
just
I have a
idea.
bachelor degree. It's okay. It's perfect. I have a bachelor degree in biology, and then I specialized in biomolecular sciences in my master. In the meantime, I did a lot of projects in chemistry. My thesis were mostly in organic chemistry, and I did also curricular experiences in laboratories working in chemistry, and also pharmacology. And one of my projects was on pharmacology related to Alzheimer's, and that's what probably brought me to do my PhD in neuroscience, and in which, as you know, I worked with neurodisease models using Drosophila melanogaster as a model. And so working obviously with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, and evolving with other aspects of the project, including public engagement, and that's what I did, let's say, during my PhD. And when I started, like as soon as I finished my PhD, I had immediately a postdoc offer, which I just kept working on neurodegenerative disease models. So again, on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and in the meantime, I started just with little small roles as a tutor and as demonstrator in biomedical sciences, because obviously with my background in biology and my molecular chemistry, I could cover several aspects. I also worked with the School of Informatics, coordinating some tutorials. That's how I started. And what I realized back then was essentially that my spent with students in the classes was a lot more enjoyable than my time in the lab or on the computer analyzing data. So
time with the humans
essentially
was more enjoyable than time with insects, you want to say?
The time with the flies, yes. Essentially, yes. I guess I was always, I guess I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was a kid, but I never thought about academic teaching. And that's why I would always recommend to all PhD students that have the possibility to try, I would always recommend to try to do small teaching roles while you are a PhD student or subject. So try to maybe start from simple roles like me and you started as well, like demonstrating laboratory sessions, or small tutorials where you don't really have to create massive amount of learning material. You just go with the flow with what you're given, but you add your input and you help students to learn. I would say I would just use this on you and every student that is following. Try to do some teaching, because you may find out that it's more enjoyable than you think. I'm not trying to convert you to teaching entirely. Research is awesome, but, I think everybody should try it a little bit.
Yeah.
Also,
sorry.
Yeah.
I think my voice arrives a bit later, so it seems that I speak. Can I add some? No, I add something a moment. And I do agree with you. I think on 2 points. I would say first to try this experience, but I think in general, if you can have a bit yeah, if someone can have some experiences that where you can use your scientific background, you know, in some projects that could be teaching, science communication with the lay audience or other things. I think this is very useful to gain expertise in something that is not only laboratory work, and also to get to know something different roles, because I think when a lot of people start these scientific, you know, scientific courses at the university, at least it was for me, I was really passionate about genetics, mutations, diseases, some things of that group. But then you realize, doing other experiences, that maybe doing the actual experiment all your life, it's not really your way maybe to apply that knowledge. You can still be really into that subject, but doing different things. I'm saying that because also my editor role now comes from, as Valentina also knows, from a actually voluntary collaboration with the Genetic Society years ago. But just to say, and then I have to say, in the specific of the teaching, it's also a way to you know, practice communicating science. I think it's also a good way to go into immerse yourself into a subject and try to communicate, engage with the younger generations, to see how, because for example, I mean, Valentina for sure knows more than me because she's into the teaching, but nowadays compared to when we did the university, that would say during the 2000 years, I think a lot has changed because there is a lot of use of YouTube, of blogs, things online that they were not much used when we were at the university. So our way to study was, even if it is not a long time ago, is much different, you know, I think, from the one of nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Actually, if I can add to this, I have to say this reflects also in teaching, because like, let's say back then, 20 years ago, we didn't have these internet availability, this massive amount of resources. So back then, our teacher really gave us the knowledge. So it was the teacher and the book, or the library, hours and hours spent in the library. While nowadays, the teaching role has also been changing a little bit, because you don't want to just give your students knowledge, because you know that they can retrieve this knowledge from anywhere and everywhere in better sources. Because I'm aware I will never be as good as some YouTubers to explain some complex pathway in the nervous system, because they are good at drawing, they are good at mounting videos, they are choosing their wording carefully, and they're not live, and so on and so forth. But sometimes teaching, I would say that now it's becoming more giving the keys to understand, or how and where to find the reliable information, and giving them more an overview of the subject you're teaching, or going and hammer on the most complex, and explaining everything from the scratch, from A to Z. So this has also influenced the teaching role, yes. And as Manuela said, it's not just about, when you're a PhD student, it's not just about try to be to see if you like it. It's also indeed provide you with some skills that will help you also in your research, because when you're going to do a talk, you will have in mind, you will consider your audience differently. You will consider your audience and start to explaining things in different ways, and in different ways that are accessible to an audience with different levels of background in the subject. So some are very young PhD students, sometimes they're postdoc, and sometimes they are big professors that are listening to they are a mix of those. Experience with teaching students, so going to help you in your speech and talks as a scientist, conferences, etc.
Okay, so it seems that so let's say that a foot into the world of academic teaching, so you managed to start to open a little door into the world of teaching through your first your smaller roles during your PhD, and then PhD, sorry, maybe the end of the PhD actually, during mainly your postdoc, you were saying, and then after the postdoc it came the actual role in the teaching. Yeah. So I mean, just to I say that I recap, I add also this because a lot of often, yeah, the question is how you can enter into this, you can start this path. But so, okay, so as a person, of course, so that from the PhD went into this in this role, are there some skills that you think that could be, you know, like that you have learned you're doing your PhD and that you could resell, let's say, in your current role, or something that came, you know, useful, even if it was maybe not obvious at first?
Okay, I'll answer this, and I realize I think I missed a very important point that our audience may be interested in. I never said how I got from research to teaching. I'm sorry. You asked me this, but I just completely skipped this part entirely. Well, when I realized that my favorite time was when I was teaching, I was a lot more enthusiastic about teaching, and I didn't want to do research, and started to focus entirely on teaching. And it's really hard because most of the positions in academia are for will do also teaching. There are just recent positions in the last 10 years that came out as teaching fellow positions and as lecturers that do not require you to also do research. So these are all search for if you're interested, or there is also another route that I didn't take because I didn't want to do your research up. And when I say keeping up your research, because if you want to become a lecturer, you also need to, you essentially are hired by university more as a researcher, and you're also asked to do teaching. So even if you, sometimes when you don't want to do teaching, when you work at university, you will be kind of forced to do teaching. So that's why I say getting some experience may help even in your research career in the future. So this is close. That's how I went from research to teaching, yeah, applying to every position, and also doing a lot of extra teaching that I was not paid for, experience. So ideally, you want to try to connect with all lecturers in your topic of interest and try to at least contribute to creating part of the teaching. What I mean is, like, for example, collaborating with a lecturer and teach a module in a course. That will give you experience, and that will look like a decent experience in your CV if you want to get to teaching. And with this, I close Manuela's question about skills. You want to know more about skills that, from my research background, helped me to become a teacher?
I say, actually, I meant more transferable skills. So can be something that is not strictly related to your research in terms of subject. I mean, something that you think that could be, I don't know, an organization, I don't know, time management, a way to organize things, for example.
Like, the first thing that comes to my mind is communication and presentation skills, so that you really should learn when you are a PhD student or a postdoc scientist in general, postdoctoral scientist in general, because you will be doing a lot of presentations, both research group, but also in wider contexts like conferences and things like that. So that will generally help you. So if you already aim at making your presentation interesting for your audience as a scientist, then you will try to bring these in your classes, because you want to attract student attention rather than explaining a topic in a boring way.
Yeah.
So that is one. But I think, of course, time management and organizational skills, if you are managing different experiments at the same time, data processing and data analysis and writing a paper and so on and so forth, that's key. Time management, organization skills that you really need in teaching, because teaching and academic student life in general is really full of deadlines and strict timelines. So that's important. Another thing I think is academic writing that you should have mastered during your PhD time. So you will know how to write academically properly, and that's really important because many of your students will need guidance on how to write academically. What else? For example, like the way you are familiar, PhD student or even more as a postdoctoral scientist, are familiar with different projects, right? All the projects that are around your lab or the projects listen to in a conference and so on and so forth. You also are aware that often the projects are planned in one way, and then they evolve towards completely different directions depending on the steps of the results of your experiment that your research can take. And this is really important, because when you have an understanding on this and an open mind towards catching the possibilities and the opportunities that some results give you to go towards a different direction in your research. I'm still here, my phone. Back, my phone fell. So when you have the flexibility of research projects and their direction, the different directions they can take, you actually will be using this ability with your students, because you will end up supervising dissertation as a teacher. If you are a teaching fellow, if you are a lecturer, it's given for granted. You will have to supervise dissertations. And it's not anymore just about the writing, it's also guiding your students towards the development of their project. And sometimes students have extremely high expectations on their projects. Like, they think that in a 10-week project at university, they can develop a huge research. Well, that's when you really have to explain them and give them a more defined direction, because you have experience in research and you know the limitations and you know the possibilities, and you help them with being more realistic and respecting the timeline and the availability of tools that they have, equipment, and so on and so forth, or data in general. And so you are ready to be flexible and help your students to be flexible with their projects, and to redirect them when is necessary towards other possibilities and other, let's say, other results. Sometimes you don't have the results you expect, and you should know this very well as a PhD student. So you can definitely help your students with this. Other skills.
Well, but it seems already a lot.
I think nothing is coming to my mind, but like, these is key. These are all key skills.
So let's say that, so even if sometimes when someone starts a PhD does not look, going into the academic teaching, that does not look like the most obvious path to take after the PhD or after the postdoc, it looks like anyway that during your PhD you learn a lot to use in a role like this, of course, if you like.
And I didn't know. I found out. I found out because now I'm using all these things in my teaching. So yes.
But I think that look, I have to say that that I think that a lot of people, again, sometimes. So I'm trying to understand what is known even nowadays when before doing a PhD. I'm saying because for sure it's different. I imagine it's a bit different from what I knew when I started mine. And it looks like that anyway, a lot of people start a PhD really thinking about doing research. And a lot of us do not know that anyway, we learn a lot. And you can really use a lot of skills that you learn during the PhD for roles that can still, as I say, include science background, but does not imply working in a lab. So that's why in some also the point of doing this chat was really to put a bit shed light on this a bit other world. Look, Vale, I have a last question that is a bit related to a hot topic for me. So the hot topic for me is papers, scientific papers, because since I work in a scientific journal, I try to share information about this aspect. And so, do you think is it important to scientific papers published to start this role or not? Just in your experience.
I think so. It depends on what you want. So, as I said before, many academic teachers are also doing research, active research, because they are very good researchers and they are required to teach by university. So in that sense, of course, it is really, really important to have published papers and to get there. For other roles in teaching, like minor roles or like lower roles, like for example, teaching fellow or even just being a tutor and starting from there, or teaching assistant, indeed, having PUB helps you prove that you that not only you know a lot about the topic, but you also have proven this. So it's a way to kind of how can I say, it's a sort of, I wouldn't say a certificate, but it's an extra proof that you have done your research, that you have done well, and therefore you know the topic. And also because research, especially in science, so scientific research really benefits, so really helps. You want your students to, so you use examples and from research to teach your students about channels, for example, or about anything. You want to use a small research project description, because if they start to learn these in their classes at university, then it's going to be much easier for them to interpret a research paper and so on and so forth. So indeed, and having published will help you in your teaching at every level. For some parts, so high-level teaching, it's mandatory, I would say. Yeah. For others, it's going to be just helpful, but it is relevant. Yes.
So basically, to sum up, that if you are you do teaching within the role of lecturer or professor, at the university, of course, you have basically those roles are associated to a research path, and then you add also the teaching. So it's super important to publish and produce, being productive in the world of research. For other roles, so because actually I think it was also good that during this chat you clarified a bit this between these roles. These other roles, like teaching fellow, that is only focused on the teaching. it's not mandatory to have a of publication science journals, and I mean, of course, the peer-reviewed journals when I say science journals, but anyway, having a good understanding or having some publications that anyway are a proof of your communications, science communication skills within academia, it's a way for you also to better students during the course. I think that's a bit the point. So I think okay, so that's, I think thank you, Valentina. You clarified a lot. You put shed light on a lot of dark points for me, and I hope also for whoever is in the audience. Actually, so thank you, Valentina, really very much for your time. And I will, for whoever arrived now, anyway, or missed or want to share the info that we talked about in this live, I will share this video, this chat on IGTV now and a bit later today on YouTube. So my channel. So thank you, Valentina, again. And
thank you.
And yeah, sorry, our voice arrived later, so it seems that I talk or you, and so if it looks like a mess, it's not because
I'm sorry. I think there is a delay in the voice. Yeah, it's fine. I guess everyone that does this should kind of be aware of this. Like sometimes delay in the voice. It's fine. Thank you so much.
Anyway.
It's been great. I enjoyed this time. Thank you.
Okay, and have a good day. Thank you to everyone for coming, and thank you to Valentina. Bye.